Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Iman Al-Sharafa. I'm a member of Emirates Angel, and I would like to thank you all for joining us today. As you know, Emirates Angels is an NGO, and our goal is to positively contribute to the startup ecosystem. Today, we are delighted to have Emirates Development Bank with us to tell us more about their role in supporting the ecosystem in the UAE, and I'm sure all of us will learn a lot from today's webinar, but if you have questions, feel free to ask in the end of the session. Finally, please follow Emirates Angels on social media. You'll find us on the App Store and Google Play to get notified about the upcoming events, which is very, very interesting events. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Ahmed Al-Nakhbi, CEO of Emirates Development Bank. Mr. Ahmed, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Iman. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for myself to be here today to present to you. I'd like to start by thanking Emirates Angels for inviting EDB and for organizing this webinar. We share the same vision as we both aim to support startups and SMEs in the UAE and enable their growth. Today, I'm going to be taking you through EDB's financial solutions and how you can benefit from our offering to grow your business and explain a little bit about our strategy and our vision for the next 4 years. So let me just project my screen and I will get right to it. So I hope you all can see this. So just to start off, EDB's mission is to support the UAE's economic diversification by enabling SMEs and large corporates in our national priority sectors. And I'll get a little bit to that on a future slide. The bank is currently launching its new strategy positioning as it is a key facilitator of the recently announced Operation 300 billion, the 10-year industrial strategy unveiled by the UAE government. And we made this announcement last May. So a bit about EDB from a structural perspective, where one, we're 100% owned by the UAE federal government. Two, we have AA- ratings from both S&P and Fitch. We're the only government entity that has both of those ratings. Why that matters is because we're currently funded by borrowing from global markets, and having that kind of rating allows us to have tighter pricing, which we then pass on to our customers through our loans. Our chairman is His Excellency Dr. Sultan Ahmed Al-Jaber, the Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology, and our Vice Chairman is His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Al Tharasi, the Minister of State for Entrepreneurship and SMEs. And I won't go through all of our board members. I'm sure most of you might already know most of them. What is common amongst all of our board is that they all have development mandates and portfolios, which allows us as an organization to work very closely and to align across various local and federal government entities to ensure that we are meeting our mandate and our mission. So our objectives is to enable the UAE's industrial development, accelerate the adoption of advanced technology, empower the growth of SMEs in the UAE, and encourage entrepreneurship and innovation. I believe the last two are the most relevant for Emirates Angels today. And our purpose is to become a key engine for growth of the UAE's economy and contribution towards the non-oil GDP, and of course, increase in national employment rates and to create in-country value generation here in the UAE. A quick overview of our objectives and our strategy. By 2025, we aim to have 30 billion dirhams in lending support to the market. We would have hoped to have supported 13,500 companies, created 25,000 jobs, and contributed 10 billion dirhams to the GDP of the UAE. We plan on doing this by empowering SMEs, driving industrial growth, encouraging innovation and entrepreneurship, supporting the adoption of advanced technologies, providing home finance for Emiratis. That's a portfolio that we still have till today. I will shift the focus to the priority sectors. So we lend in 5 key sectors: healthcare, advanced technology, food security, infrastructure, and manufacturing. I have some subsectors on a separate slide, so you'll see also that this is quite broad. However, we are only lending to these 5 key sectors. And we do it through a direct and indirect lending model. We work with partners, but we also have direct lending, equity finance to startups and SMEs, advisory, coaching, and mentoring. And what we offer, which I'll also show in more detail on a separate slide, is we offer a patient debt approach. We have flexible pricing and tailored finance solutions and structures. So the key priorities for us is: 1, we only finance investments that are located in the UAE, companies, projects that are located here in the UAE. We do not finance companies that are expanding into other countries. However, we do finance those companies if they have projects for the promotion of export, as an example. However, we look for the operations and the company to be here located in the UAE. We're looking to contribute to the UAE economy to create high-skilled job creation. So when we're looking at transactions, we look at this. We look at the local content. We look at import substitution, export promotion, and investment in advanced technology. There's also another slide where I'll explain a little bit about our development scoring and how we actually look at these different criteria. Again, we have an emphasis on business expansion and investments in productive assets local to the UAE and looking at enhancing the bankability of underbanked SMEs. I'll have a little bit of a clarification on what we mean by underbanked SMEs also on another slide. So as I was saying earlier, it's quite actually expansive when you think about all the subsectors of these 5 key sectors that we're focused on. These 5 key sectors are aligned with the government's growth plans to move away from oil, GDP, and income. And they've been identified as the fastest growing, as well as self-sustaining for the country to be producing here locally in the UAE, whether it's under manufacturing, infrastructure, technology, healthcare, and food security. So a question that I always get when I meet with all of our partners is, how are you different to commercial banks? And we all know that there's lots of commercial banks in the UAE, so there's no reason for us to be pushing or creating another bank in the UAE. However, we are a development bank. What that means is, from a strategic objectives perspective, our objective is to maximize economic impact, to enhance the bankability of SMEs, and to support the development of the new sectors that I had mentioned on the previous slide. Commercial banks, nothing wrong with it. They are there to maximize shareholder returns. That's what they're set up to do. From a market positioning perspective, we're here to partner with commercial banks to support the economy. We've already signed MOUs and agreements with 7 banks locally. There's another 3 that are in a pipeline where we work with them on lending programs, again, with the objective of supporting SMEs. Commercial banks, of course, compete with each other over market share. The purpose of our financing, we are customized project-specific financing solutions. Our priority are on greenfield and brownfield projects. Commercial banks will typically have relationships that they've had for 5, 10, 20 years, and it's general purpose financing. Our tenors, one of the key differentiators is that we have a patient debt approach with longer tenor financing. So our tenors easily can go 10 plus years. The average tenor of a commercial bank for a loan is about 5 years. And again, based on the relationship for a commercial bank, it can go to 7 to 9. But we go 10 plus years for a project or a transaction or a company that shows us that there's a high development score behind that transaction. From a pricing perspective, we are competitive with our pricing and we're driven by development criteria. Commercial banks are driven by RAROC optimization, risk, returns on risk-adjusted capital, which then, of course, goes back into maximizing shareholder returns. So we don't say that we are cheaper than commercial banks. We're typically in line. Sometimes we're cheaper. Sometimes we might be a little bit more expensive. But again, the differentiation is on the length, the tenors, the patient financing that we give. And we are driven by development criteria, not by RAROC. Our risk appetite, we are willing to accept higher risk projects with high development impact. So if a project has a high development score, we're willing to potentially accept financing it and also giving it flexible terms, including customized moratorium periods. Again, a commercial bank you can expect will minimize exposure to high risk projects in high risk sectors. They will typically lend to those that they know, those that they've had relationships with for many years, again, to limit the risk of the bank in order to ensure that they are maximizing shareholder returns. So in summary, this is essentially how we are differentiated from commercial banks. One thing which I want to make clear, as I was talking about earlier, about enhancing the bankability of underbanked SMEs. We look for SMEs that are looking at expansion projects, greenfield, brownfield projects. They have limited access to financing because they're relatively new to the country. Local content and digitization is what they're focused on. And of course, again, the new sectors and products that we had mentioned earlier. What we do not finance, when we say underbanked SMEs, I do not mean that we finance negative credit bureau data. So any SMEs or companies that have bad debt or bad credit or any central bank blacklists, the EDB is not set up to come bail them out. That's not what we're here to do. So we also don't finance someone who's over leveraged with commercial banks or someone who's looking for debt restructuring. That's not our job. That's not our mandate. That's not what EDB is set up to do. And of course, if they don't have any link to industrial production. So I keep saying that we link it all back to a development score and a development scorecard. So this is a summary of what we look at. We actually look at about 30, 40 different fields where we evaluate a transaction or a company. And then based on that development score, we give them certain incentives, better tenors, better moratoriums, a potential reduction in pricing, so on and so forth. We look at quantitative and qualitative metrics. On the quantitative side, we look at the transactions value to the GDP of the country, and we look at how many jobs are created by the transaction itself, by financing that project, by creating a new factory or a new production line. How many jobs will that potentially create? We also then have a qualitative score, which we look at. So we look at, for example, the type of transaction, the type of project that's being done. Is it a greenfield? Is it a brownfield? Is it a new production line? Is it an expansion for a factory? Is it opening up a second site or a second location? There's lots of different things that we look at, and we have scoring for all of these. And then, of course, we look at the in-country value score, and we look at the I4.0 advanced technology score. And then we have some quantitative measures that we look at specifically for SMEs and then specifically for large corporates. Some of the examples that we look at for SMEs is whether or not they have already access to finance. Do they have existing banking relationships? Obviously, the latter being that if they don't have existing access to finance, we score them higher so that we can help support them. And again, if they're in the new sectors that we talked about. For large corporates, are they a GRE versus private sector, favor in private sector? And the ecosystem impact that they have. So not just as a large corporate, if they're setting up a large project, it's not just the impact on that project itself, but the impact on the SMEs of the ecosystem that that project might create. And we score this, and then based on that, we can then give certain incentives. Our product offerings are comprehensive across the entire company lifecycle. So as I've been mentioning before, we have greenfield and brownfield project finance, long-term CapEx financing, advanced technology adoption finance, renewables and energy efficiency finance, digitalization finance. The difference being between advanced technology and digitalization. Advanced technology is the future state of technology, things like quantum computing, AI, robotics, those kinds of projects. Digitalization is when a company, specifically usually an SME, is looking to upgrade their IT infrastructure. And we partner and work with OEMs like Cisco, Alcatel, and so on, in order to finance the upgrade of the IT infrastructure of that SME. And then we do have trade finance solutions. Of course, we have our treasury and risk management, our co-lending and credit guarantee scheme, which we work with the partner banks on, and supply chain finance. For the future, we're working on innovation finance and equity financing. That's something which we're looking at in 2022. Now, something which I believe all of you will be very interested in. So how are we saying that we're giving better incentives for the different high development impact transactions? So for greenfield and brownfield project financing, we can do up to 70% financing. We can do 15 years tenors and 2-year moratorium periods. For capitalization or CapEx financing, we do 80% LTVs, which means 80% of the value of the transaction. We do up to 12-year tenors and 1.5-year moratorium periods. Sorry, for those of you that don't know, a moratorium period is a grace period that we give at the beginning of a loan, where we essentially give a grace period where the principal of the debt doesn't have to be serviced, only the interest. So there's 2 years or 1.5 years in the case of CapEx financing to allow the entrepreneur or the business to allow itself to be time to be able to get set up, start generating income and revenue, producing what they're supposed to produce, and then they can start servicing the debt after that. Advanced technology adoption, we do up to 90% LTVs, 12-year tenors, and 1.5-year moratorium periods. For renewables and energy efficiency financing, this is something that we're very, very heavy on and want to support as many projects as possible. We can do up to 100% financing. So the entirety of the project can be financed from end to end by EDB, and give up to 15-year tenors and 2-year moratorium periods, giving that project all the time it needs to succeed without having it being burdened with a short time frame to pay back the debt. And then lastly, on the digitalization financing, we can do 70% LTVs, 7 years of tenors, and 1.5 years the grace period. The 7-year tenor is usually linked back to the depreciation of the assets if they're buying hardware for the upgrade of their IT infrastructure. Next, I'd like to highlight another way that we're here to support entrepreneurs and startups specifically in the smaller end of the business life cycle. One of the things that I did and my team did when I first started with EDB was go and visit as many partners as I could on the government, federal government, local government, partners in the private industry. And one of the things that kept coming up that was a constant issue and problem was the ability to open up bank accounts for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And that includes free zones, of course, where it's essentially very difficult to do so with commercial banks. Again, I don't blame the commercial banks. The commercial banks have a lot on their plate that they have to deal with when it comes to KYC, know your customer, and compliance. They have issues where exposure to dollar, euro, pound, having branches in multiple countries, having to answer to multiple regulators around the world makes it incredibly difficult for them to open accounts and ensure that they don't get fines over time because they open the wrong account for the wrong individual. We, on the other hand, listened to that issue and that problem and came up with a solution. We launched this in September. So we launched a digital bank, EDB Digital Business Bank, which is free and open to all businesses across the UAE. Absolutely no cost, no monthly fees, no minimum balance fees, no maintenance fees, nothing whatsoever. Because again, we are a development bank, we're not a commercial entity. You can complete an application within seconds. Your IBAN will be reserved within minutes. All of this on the application itself. The account could be activated as fast as 48 hours. We say as fast as 48 hours, it's actually quicker than that, but we say as fast as 48 hours, depending on if the entrepreneur has their documentation. Documentation is very simple. We're talking about things like an EID, a shareholders agreement, a trade license. As long as you have those documents and they're in working order, you generally can have your account opened in less than 48 hours. There's no minimum balance requirement for this. So again, we're not here to tell the entrepreneur or the small business, keep 50,000 dirhams minimum balance in your account, when we know that that 50,000 dirhams can go towards them setting up their business, them hiring people, them actually using it in the economy in the UAE. And this is what we've launched in September. It's been met with very good demand, and it's open to everyone, including the free zones. So the free zones as well, if you've set up a company in a free zone, you can use this to open up a bank account. And we're partnered with Yap. Yap is our partner. It's a fintech that is working with us on this. In the near future, we're working on a roadmap. We have several other features that we're looking to launch. Again, looking at it from the perspective of an entrepreneur or a small business owner. We're looking at adding in bill payments to allow them for easy access and payment of their bills, expense management tracking, analytics and budgeting tools. VAT calculation submission is one that we got a lot of feedback on. And we're building a direct link with the VAT authorities. That's our goal, our objective, to be able to calculate VAT and then make the payment directly through the application. Invoicing with direct payment links. So again, as a small business owner or an entrepreneur, you can use the app. You can send out a message, whether it goes onto WhatsApp or SMS, with a link. Your supplier, your buyer, whoever your customer is, can use that link to make the payment. It'll go directly to your account. And lastly, payroll management. We're working on a payroll management solution to allow for you to be able to have people that work within your company have all the payroll processed directly through the app. And that's it. We're going to have a few questions. If you can please click the link in the chat box. I'll give it a minute. But we kindly ask you to just click that link and answer it. It's 2 questions, if I'm not mistaken. We just want to be able to get a little bit of feedback from yourselves before we move on. We will have a Q&A session in just a few minutes. I'll just give it another 30 seconds to answer those questions, please. Okay, so we'll just move on. So one more thing, please take a screenshot of this slide right here. Our head of large corporate, Mr. Vivek Vohra, he handles all corporates that are with a turnover over 250 million dirhams a year. We have Mr. Shakir Zainal, who's handling our SME sector, any companies that have a turnover of 250 million or less a year, and Mr. Fadil Hismani, who is our senior relationship manager. Please take their contact information, their direct line, mobile, and their emails. We'll be very happy to receive any inquiries directly to them. And if you have any companies that need any financing needs as what we had just presented, we'd be very happy to explain and go into details of your company or of your transactions. Now, next, we'll be having a panel discussion, and I'll be happy to answer maybe some questions during that time. But we'll have our panel members, which is Mr. Carlos Travasaros, who's our Chief Transformation Officer. He'll lead the panel and the Q&A. And of course, we'll have Shakir and Fadil available as well. I'll just go off the projector mode.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. I don't know if I can be heard. If I can be heard clearly.
Yes, I can hear you.
The voice is coming back to me. Now it's better, I think. Yes. So thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. I am Carlos Travasaros, Chief Transformation Officer of EDB, and we have Fadil and Hasbani and Shakir Zainal with us on the panel, who were introduced by Ahmed Al-Nakbi earlier. I will just address a couple of questions to the team, and then to Fadil and Shakir, and then we can go on to the open questions by the audience. So I will start with Fadil. Fadil, like our audience is very much focused on the startup and micro segment, and I just wanted to get your perspective. Could you give us some examples of projects that EDB finances in the small and micro segment, and what are, let's say, the most interesting aspects in the way that the EDB can support these businesses?
Sure. Thank you so much, Carlos, for your question. We at EDB develop and enable entities that are in UAE, as you mentioned, Mr. Ahmed, and the project are operating in our focus sectors. We have finances small and micro entities that are looking to start or expand their business in the focus sector, like healthcare project, food supply, and also small scale manufacturing, and so on and so forth. Mainly, we are looking over a main four pillar in order to finance such a project, and this is very important to understand how EDB its work and how we can make this kind of application be approved and be one of the very successful stories in EDB. The promoter skills and experience in the field, it will be very important, which is one of the things with which EDB will look at it. And know-how behind the business and market knowledge, also something will be very important to understand, the potential behind the business. Moreover, the capital that is available to secure the required investor contribution, and this is depend from the project to project, how much contribution is required to make sure that the business will be up and running and successful. And also very important, the business plan or the feasibility study, which will be in place and it will be accurate and within the market norms. Those things will make sure that EDB will look at it and support the entrepreneur and the entities which are in the startup phase or in the expansion phase. This has helped them to do a very successful business, and it will have full support from EDB in order to make the project successful, and also make them in a way we can say that have the impact on the GDP for UAE and the economy of the UAE, because those kind of the project will be always the backbone of the UAE economy.
Yes.
Thank you, Fadil, for the comprehensive answer. And maybe let me turn to Shakir. Shakir, we do offer as EDB a number of products also in the non-direct financing space, either through partnerships or through other kind of advisory services, mentoring, and so on. Could you just provide us an overview of this scope of services?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks, Carlos. As you know, there are many challenges that SME, especially micro and startup entities, face, ranging from limited solutions in the market up to, the pricing. There have been constant feedback from a lot of SME customers that the limited range of products and the high pricing, especially on the fee, has been an issue. We at EDB offer a range of solutions with very, very competitive pricing, and what differentiates us also the longer tenure that we have. However, what is our key mandate is to maximize the economic impact of those SMEs, and of course enhancing bankability of SME, and of course supporting the development in new sectors that the CEO was talking about. We have different type of support when it comes to building this ecosystem. We do that through direct lending and indirect lending. When it comes to direct lending, small and micro entities can approach us directly. They can avail loans up to 5 million for secured loans and up to 2 million, unsecured with a longer tenor. That's what differentiates us also from a lot of commercial bank. Our tenor is the key feature to solutions comparing to a lot of commercial bank, and we also we do a lot of deep analysis and trying to customize our offering as much as possible. So this is on direct. On indirect, we have tie up with with a crowdfunding partner called Beehive. They provide funding to underbanked SMEs. As you know, Beehive is based in UAE. It's peer-to-peer lending platform. They provide facilities up to 1.5 million. And we actually contribute to that up to 30%. So that's another, facility that we do, and that people can apply through either our website or to go through Beehive platform. We also, when I talked about how we can enhance bankability, we also work with our partner banks. We have 7 leading commercial banks such as NBQ, NBF, Emirates NBD, FAB, Mashruq, Emirates RAK Bank. So we have those 7 banks. We actually work with them to support the SME lending, which eventually contributes toward GDP growth. A credit guarantee co-lending program is designed to improve SME access to financing. Some of these banks shy away because of high risk, but we provide partial guarantee to lending banks that SME that fails to repay the finance commitment. The guarantee coverage is up to 5 million. So the partner bank can go up to 10. We guarantee 50%. For startups and micro, we can go up to 60% coverage. We also offer something I'm sure maybe might be very relevant to today's meeting. A lot of entrepreneurs where they're yet to set up, or they have ideas or seed, or they are at the idea stage or seed. We have our business lab, which is non-financial services that provide free, essential resources, content to help entrepreneurs at various stage of their business. We have business courses on our website that covers topics of strategy, innovation, sales, marketing, or accounting. Of course, these are, we also do advisory role. We do mentoring session for our, SMEs, and we help them to grow and mitigate, foreseen any risk or expansion. We also have tie up with Zoho. It's a global technology company with a broader portfolio of cloud-based. So customers can, gain access to those multi-application, and it's very beneficial for startups because they don't want to invest into payroll system or accounting system or, even CRM or marketing. So these are platforms that can be provided, freely for those startups first year. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Shakir. Very helpful. And let me go back to Fadil. Fadil, one of the things that EDB is very proud of is we see ourselves not just as somebody who supports small and micro companies for one transaction. We want to be their partner throughout their growth journey, and we want to stay with them and grow together with them as they become a medium-sized entity and hopefully potentially a large corporate. Can you just provide us a bit of an overview on how do we support our clients throughout the growth journey, and we stay with them during this entire period?
Sure. So in addition to the financing solution, our key mission as EDB is to support these entities from the very start and assist in their journey to become successful entity and medium entity as well, not only to provide them the financing solution on the first stage and just keep them, without non-monitoring or assistance. Accordingly, we provide advisory service through dedicated RM, relationship manager. He will be dedicated for them. He will take them through all the journey from the beginning till the end of the process, and also will monitoring their session, walk them to our entrepreneurs throughout solution, and also help him with the mitigation of the risk. This is the most important part, where the entrepreneurs and such kind of entities will face it, and they will have to get a support to identify this kind of risk and mitigating, like performance risk, credit risk, liquidity risk, as well as business continuity risk. And maybe the competition risk is also one of the very important risk we have to mention it. And we explain them how to reduce their risk in order to support them to increase their business performance, and to also go to the next step by shifting from the small company to the medium company. And also we assist with the developing their effectively their financials, because this is very important from in this stage to change the way how they are preparing their financial reports, the audit reports, in order to help them to secure financing from not only EDB, from other also lenders, and to build their credit worthiness, because this is very important for any company need to growth, to build this credit worthiness and secure financing in the future. Introducing them also to some of the key corporate players, it's our role. We sometimes play the role of link these small companies to the large corporate or the medium corporate companies, which we have access to them, in order to scale their services and their solution, and become also very potential business for them in very short term. This is mainly in a nutshell when we can support them in non-financial services beyond the just the financing solution.
Very good. Thank you, Fadil. Very clear. And then finally, I go back to Shaker. And Shaker, let's speak about the business banking application, which has been recently launched and has been very successful. And it's probably the most sophisticated digital banking solution in the SME space we have. Could you just provide us, elaborate a bit on that, building on what
Yes.
the CEO mentioned in the beginning, and what are the major merits
Yes.
for SMEs and startups in this application?
Yes, Carlos, I mean, if you ask one simple question, what is the most difficult journey that SME can go through? We will tell you the account opening. And it's across the board. It takes months. And once it opens, you hit with all these charges of minimum balance or the fees. So I think this was the biggest issue that the SME were facing. So I think we as an EDB, with the back of the research we have done, that was the most important thing that we needed to resolve. And the journey starts with any SME with account opening. Once you finish your idea and you go live, first thing you want to do is to issue a trade license and then account opening. So we recently, when we launched, we allowed entities to open an account online. Very simple. You just download the application through Apple, or if you have any other mobile type, so you can download the application very simply. If you have a trade license and your Emirates ID, just scan them. Within few seconds, you get your IBAN, and within 24 hours, you get your account gets activated and you're ready and operational. I'm talking about 24 hours, so that's extremely powerful. And of course, it offers 24/7 secure convenience. A lot of features are there, so at least the entrepreneur can start the journey immediately. And I wanted also to mention we recently won the award past month in ADGM is the most innovative banking application in UAE, and we are growing rapidly month by month. Yep. It's free of charge, no minimum balance, nothing. It's hidden. It's very clear.
Thank you very much, Shakir. Very interesting. I'm happy to see we have a number of questions from the audience. Let me just go through them. I think many of them I will address, and some of them I'll pass over to the team. So, do we support SMEs in the UAE? Do we prefer SMEs located or based in Abu Dhabi? We support SMEs across the UAE. We don't have a particular Emirate focus. We reach out to all the Emirates. So please feel free to reach out to us, discuss your plans, and and we can help you. We can support you in your financing options. I see some questions about banking with offshore companies. We are focused. As part of our eligibility criteria, we are serving companies with onshore operations in the UAE only. I let Shakir comment about that a bit more.
Yeah, so we, as you mentioned rightly, we are actually across UAE, but I wanted to emphasize that we are also not UAE. It can be mainland or even free zones. So we are open totally in all the areas in UAE. Now, going back to if it is offshore, I mean, if the company is offshore, it's not based in UAE, then we don't. It has to be based in UAE. If the account is open, if the company is physically here, then yes, we do support.
The only thing about offshore, just to be clear, is free zones in the UAE, economic zones in the UAE are covered. So we do open accounts for if you're discussing maybe a company that's set up in DIFC or ADGM or any of the economic zones like Jafza or Kizad and so on, we do open accounts for companies that are set up there.
Very good. We offer much better services than current banks. Yes, we do. We'll be able to afford a huge influx of applicants over the coming year. This is the point of the digital banking application, that it's quite efficient. It's very efficient and very well structured, so it is able to handle a large number of applicants. We are confident, and we can see that we can handle that. I'll just let our CEO Ahmed Al Nakbi to comment on that potentially a bit more, and Shakir.
I'll just mention one thing to be also clear, is that this application transacts only in UAE dirham, and the transactions are only local to the UAE. We will have international remittances added on in the future, but for the time being, it's only UAE dirham and local to the UAE. That's how we open the bank account so quickly.
Great. In the area of agriculture financing, do we support only the primary cultivating of plants and livestock? We support, and this is, first of all, agriculture is one of our core sectors of focus, very important also for food security. We support ventures across the value chain. However, there has to be clearly a manufacturing element in the entire investment, because this is one of our core developmental criteria. Maybe I can let Shakir comment on that a bit more.
I think I hope he captured our email and our mobile. Definitely, we will go into the details of understanding what does he means of cultivating of plants. But it sounds, because it's a priority sector, definitely we look into this, and especially as you mentioned, Carlos, if it is manufacturing.
Great. It sounds too good to be true. What is the catch? Well, yeah.
No catch.
There's no catch. The only major catch is that we are focused on the industrial sectors, and as presented also in the initial document, our terms are driven by the developmental impact of the project. So the more developmental a project is based on our measurement and assessment, the more flexible and favorable the terms will be. I think for further details, we have to discuss specific projects to be able to be a bit more specific. But we're not hiding anything, this is for sure. Does the business have to be up and running, or there is a program for pre-creation of the startups? We are looking at businesses that are operational and at the early stage of development predominantly. Let me just highlight here that from next year, we are also planning to launch our equity investment platform, which will be supporting startups in the earlier pre-seed phase. And maybe I'll let Shakir comment a bit more on this one as well.
No, I totally agree with you, Carlos. I think the non-financial can support you here because we don't do lending for any program for pre-creation of a startup yet. But if you want to discuss your business plan, how to set it up, you need any uh, advice on how you do your cash flows, we're here to support you. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. I think we have a couple of more questions that
There's one thing, Carlos, just so I can address, because I just received a
Yes.
message
Yes.
where it
Yes.
took someone 4 days to open the account, and they were asked for more documents. That's very true. That definitely can be the case. So we said that there's 3 documents. If you're talking about the account, I'm assuming it's talking about the account opening. The three documents, main documents, are the EID, the Emirates ID, the trade license, and the shareholders agreement. However, we do still have compliance checks. There could be additional documents that are requested based on those compliance checks. And that's probably why it took a couple of extra days to get those documents back. Offering of debit and credit card. We are not a commercial bank, so we're not looking for, and of course, checkbooks as well is listed here. Credit cards and checkbooks is not something that we're going to be offering today or tomorrow and any time in the future. We're not looking at this from a commercial perspective. Debit cards is something that we're currently working on offering in the near future. And then only local currencies. Yes, we're only operating in UAE dirham. Again, the purpose being that we are reducing the KYC, anti-money laundering requirements by only operating in UAE dirham. Once you open it up to dollars and euros and so on, there's a lot of other checks that go into it. And then the international transfers also was a question. Again, on the international transfers, we're currently working on adding on to the application the international remittance. Again, to go back to the purpose of the application, is to allow entrepreneurs and SMEs the ability to open bank accounts quickly in order to start their journey on setting up their business. There will be a lot of additional features. However, we're not going to become a commercial bank. I just want to make that clear. We're not looking to compete with commercial banks. We're looking to allow access to entrepreneurs and startups to the financial system of the UAE.
Very good. Thank you, Ahmed. Who have the contacts to talk to in the area of financing an innovative 200 megawatt battery manufacturing plant? This is music to our ears. It's ticking all. It's one of them. It's ticking all the developmental criteria we have. I think Mike, you should reach out to Shaker and Fadil. Their email. Contacts and phone numbers are on this document. By the way, we will circulate this document to everybody after this session, so you can have all the contacts. And we look forward to talking to you. Is financing open for non-Emirates as well? Yes, of course it is. And as long as the project fulfills the developmental criteria, we are very happy to support you. And please, Sanjeev, feel free to reach out to us. Our contacts are on the document. How many business customers does EDB currently have? Leave that to our CEO, Ahmed. I'm not sure whether we can disclose that or.
Yeah, I can't really disclose that, to be honest, but
Yes.
we do support several thousand companies over the different services and product offerings that we have. But I can't give you an exact figure.
But please also be informed that we are supporting companies, as we said, directly through our direct financing channel, as well as indirectly through our programs with partner banks. So as Ahmed said, it's multiple thousands if we include also the indirect part. But yes, we cannot be very specific. Thank you very much for all the questions. I'm very happy to see there is some engagement. One more coming in from Dr. Saed. If the company is creating a software for other sectors, such as for businesses and governments, not necessarily in education, can it be considered as a priority sector? So if it is a manufacturing of software, yes, it is. We have to look at the specifics of the business, but definitely it is very likely to be eligible. I don't know, Shakar, if you want to comment on this a bit more.
No, I agree. He's eligible. It's a technology, software, but I hope it's not a trader. I mean, it's just bringing the expertise. I mean, if he has a full-fledged operation here, and
Yes.
he has this, and there is impact, human capital and GDP impact, that when we finance that, that impacts the company, then definitely yes.
Very good. Thank you, Shakar. I think I had seen some hands raised, but I'm not sure people can speak. Thank you all for your questions. Anybody else? So I'm happy to see that some people also have indicated interest to be contacted by us. We will get your contact details after the session and we'll reach out to you for further discussions. Thank you very much for the interest and for attending. And I don't know if there are no other questions. I think we can complete the session and look forward to speaking to you directly.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time today.
Okay,
you.
very good. Sanjeev, we will contact you and thank you very much. And
Thank
all the best and look forward to talking to everybody. Thank you.